We're going to be begrudgingly realistic on today's mock draft as we give you picks for the Colts that we really don't like, but are quite possible. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. What is up, friends? This is Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks of HorseshoeHuddle.com. And today we are keeping up our tradition of mock draft Mondays, and we like to bring a little different theme or stipulation to each one. So in this one, the theme is thanks, I hate it, basically. We're going through 3 rounds again, basically where these are picks where we could see the Colts making them. They're either positions of need or they're just players that are highly regarded. And we could see the Colts pulling the trigger, but it's just not necessarily what we would want them to do in that position or with that player. So I'll go ahead and let's start this out with Zach. Who is your first round pick that you really just would not drive with?
Man, I went through so many here because there's so many guys where it's like I probably wouldn't take him at 15, but maybe I'm an eternal optimist or something when it comes to the draft because I could talk myself into pretty much all of these. Like even the guy I chose, I was like, you know what? I could probably talk myself into it. I can never sleep on my ability to talk myself into it, but I went with an offensive lineman because I just went with the position group that would probably annoy me the most. I went with offensive tackle / interior offensive lineman, Troy Fautanu from Washington. Now, this is a fantastic player, absolutely fantastic player. And if the Colts didn't have 5 guys on the offensive line that they liked, 100% I would say they'd be in on this guy. I mean, he is just an uber athlete, 6'4", like 315 pounds, ran almost, I think it was near sub 5 second 40-yard dash. When you watch him on film, he is the smoothest tackle prospect in this entire class. And I see the projection too into your offensive line too, because he's not overly lengthy or overly like powerful within his frame. Like he can get driven back a little bit at tackle, and maybe you can have him play with more athleticism on the inside, but Troy Fautanu, great prospect, awesome prospect. And if the Colts didn't have 5 guys on the offensive line, I do think they would be really, really into him there. But I could see a world where they're looking at this draft board and say all their guys that they had as options at 15 are gone and they don't have a trade back option. Well, they can look and say, hey, look, Troy Fautanu is our last blue on the board. We're going to take him. We're going to take him here, and then we're going to have riots through the city of Indianapolis. We're going to have, where's our pass catcher? So they're going to have to put him at tight end half the time just to make it work. So, no, I do think it's not super realistic that Troy Fautanu is the Colts option at 15, but I could see a scenario where it happens, and I don't like that scenario at all because they have so many more needs on this team than an offensive lineman. But Chris Ballard always loves the trenches. He loves the trenches. He takes offensive line and defensive line high. So I could see it. I wouldn't be a fan, even though I love Troy Fautanu. I love him. He's a great player. I wouldn't do it, obviously, in this class.
Yeah, no, again, I do like the player. The guy is nimble. He comes from that Washington system that I know you love, that Howard Mudd discipleship. It would be a great pick for any amount of other teams, but that's a pick that doesn't really matter until next year because he's either replacing Will Fries or Ryan Kelly. You could go in and plug him in over Will Fries now, I guess, but that's just such a luxury pick. You're exactly right. Good player, not the appropriate spot for him. So I had to switch mine up as of the Monday morning news break. So the Colts re-signing DeForest Buckner kind of made my decision for me. I originally had Byron Murphy on here. I didn't super want to do that, but it was creeping closer to feeling more realistic, and we already talked about it recently. So I went ahead and saying the Colts stay at 15. I have Jared Verse from Florida State. Now, I'm not opposed to an edge rusher. Like if the Colts even went up to like get Dallas Turner within the top 12 or something, I'd be fine with it. But Dallas Turner is kind of my extent of the early edge rushers for me. Verse, I know for me, he's all projection. Like when I watch him, I don't get juiced up watching him. You know what I mean? Like you see Dallas Turner and you're like, oh, this guy's violent. Like you can see the explosion around the edge. He's a guy like Turner's not even a guy that's he doesn't have like a ton of moves in his pocket. Yeah, he gets by a lot with athleticism, speed, and power. Verse is a highly regarded athlete. I mean, you even had him in your most recent Colts mock draft. He makes sense for the Colts, and I understand why they would like him. He's a lot of projection for me to take at 15. If you're going to get an edge in the first round, I would go up for Turner or just wait and do it. I know it seems like Marshawn Nealon, there's some interest there. But yeah, there's so many other positions, and I guarantee there would be a handful of other players that would just be better suited to go there. And it's just tough to say, cool, we've got this really good athlete at edge, but we're going to have to wait for him to develop and become a really good alpha pass rusher. It's like we've heard it before. So I'm just not into being super patient because we've also said they really need to hit on this draft class with some urgency.
Yeah, I think my big thing with Jared Verse, and don't get me wrong, I think he's a good fit for what Chris Ballard typically goes for. He's a good fit for the type of lineman. Like if you're going to replace Kwity Paye, that's essentially who you'd be replacing him with. Mm-hmm. And I think he does a lot of the things that Kwity Paye does with winning with power and using his long arms to, displace offensive tackles. My big thing with him and where I kind of come into issues with his film and how I evaluate him is he's a 23, soon to be 24-year-old pass rusher who primarily won with power at the college level. And I get nervous watching guys, who don't produce until they're very late in their career, and then they win with overpowering other players because it took until you're 22, 23 years old to overpower 18, 19, 20-year-olds to start looking good on film. And look, there's a lot of circumstances that happened in his career. I'm not saying that, he should have been producing at 18. He was at like community college, I believe, early in his career. So obviously there's a lot of things that go into it, but that gives me more holdups than other things. I do think I'm probably higher on his ability to play now than you are, because I do think that power is very good, and I do think he will have moments where he will displace tackles and look really good with that power and that long arm and that drive, that leg drive. But I do think it's, for me, I like Jared Verse probably a little bit more than you, but I still think it's more of a highish floor type guy, like lowish ceiling. Like I think he'll be a fine NFL player. And I could see a scenario where he becomes like better than fine. But at 15, I just can't take a 23-year-old who wins with power. I need more juice. I need more bend. I need more upside. And for Verse, I don't see a potential superstar one day. I see a good player. I see a solid player. I don't see a superstar. Like Dallas Turner might be more raw than a Verse in some ways, but I see that potential. Look, yeah. I'm looking at this 250-pound guy running a 4.4 and jumping 40-something inches and being productive since the time he was 18 at Alabama. And I'm thinking about what he could do, with right coaching and stuff like that in the right situation. Jared Verse, I'm seeing a 23-year-old guy win with power over 20-year-olds and 19-year-olds. And I think he can be good. I need more at 15. So he was one of the guys where it's like, in a trade back, fine. I'm cool with him in a trade back. Like him, like Cooper DeJean, Xavier Worthy, like those type of guys. If you're trading back, I'm all good with it. But at 15, I just can't talk myself into a Jared Verse. I can talk myself into a couple other guys. I can't talk myself into a Jared Verse. But that's who we have here in round one, guys. Coming up, we're going to jump to round two in our semi-realistic, mostly pessimistic mock draft. I think that's what we're going for today, Jake, our kind of pessimistic mock draft that would make us upset. We're going to do round two coming up here in just a second. But first, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And Locked On Colts fans, it's Locked On's NFL Mock Draft live on April 17th at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, streaming live on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. So I guess in the spirit of, you let me go first, Jake, in the first round, I'm going to let you go first here in the second round, because we both went with wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I went with a receiver that a lot of Colts fans are, getting a little too excited about, in my opinion. And you went with a wide receiver that I think a lot of Colts fans are kind of just okay with in round two. But I guess you're not okay with him in round two, Jake. What are we thinking here?
It's not so much that I'm not okay with him at all. I've just got to imagine there's other guys there that I like more. And I'm starting to get picky with some positions. Like with Verse, I was with you. I'd be more comfortable with him in a trade back, but I'm just picky with some of these things. And this seems like a big ask, but I just like for my receivers to be able to consistently catch the ball. Like, I like a lot of what Franklin does on film. Like, I love his field stretching ability, his yak ability. I do think he's good at finding some soft spots in the zone. He's got some really nice things about him, and there's a reason the Colts had Reggie Wayne go watch him. But I'm just thinking to myself, it's 3rd and 8, it's late in the game. Richardson rolls out a bit, hits Franklin in the chest, whoop, off it goes. Like, I can't take that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you need clutch players, and I know the Colts have, even with receivers, like, if the guy has traits or size, they're like, we can work on his hands, whatever. Franklin is a little bit too whoopsie-daisy for me with the hands. Again, I could talk myself into him because he does do some nice things on film. And I'm more of a what can the guy do for you player rather than he sucks if he's not an elite all-around player. Like, I'm more of a I'm into getting guys for the roles they're going to play. But when you look at Xavier Legette, Malachi Corley, any of the other guys, that there's going to be a number of receivers still available there around 46. And I just don't think Franklin's going to be my favorite of the bunch.
And by the way, if you didn't say it top, he took Troy Franklin from Oregon. That's who.
Did I not?
I don't know if you said it or not. But I just want to make sure. Troy Franklin from Oregon is who Jake took there in the second round. And I kind of disagree with him a little bit. It's kind of like the Verse thing, where it's like, I get it, Jake. I get what you're saying here. I think he can do a little bit more than you give him credit for, but still, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's not the most flashy pick. Like, he's a vertical guy. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who's going to win vertical. He knows how to stack dudes perfectly, really good getting that depth down the field. But yeah, the hands are a little inconsistent. And I'm scared of when, in the NFL, defenders' hands are going to get in there when you're fighting the ball. I'm concerned about that. I think it's a little bit stiff as well for a guy his size. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little bit concerned there as well. And I'm with you. Like, if they took Troy Franklin, I'd probably be more excited than you would be in round two, but it still wouldn't be, me doing cartwheel. I just realized this is my mock draft that I did for the Colts.
I'm picking it apart.
I just realized those are my first 2 picks in my mock
draft. You had a trade back involved. No, this is, yeah. I mean, again, I wouldn't hate it. It's a weapon for Anthony, and it's good, but it's just not my favorite thing.
Jake just being like, Zach's mock draft stinks.
You knew that mock was gonna stir things up. You knew it. You had to answer about it on Friday's show.
I did. Now the receiver I went with in round 2, and this is one that it might be a little hot takey. I personally, hopefully after I explain it, you guys don't think so, but I went with Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver from Florida, in round 2, and I want to put it out there. I like Pearsall. I think he's a good player. I love that he tested the way he did. Like, that was fantastic testing. I love his hands. I love his ability to get vertical from the slot. I like his route running. It's really good. But I don't see a top 50 player. I don't see a top like 75 player, honestly, for me on film. I just think a player going that high, I need more yards after the catch. I need more of that ability to create after the catch. And if you're not giving me that, then I need like legit ability to play on the outside. Like, he's a slot guy for me. He's a slot only guy for me. I don't think he can really play on the outside because I don't see his ability to be pressed. I don't really see the physicality within his route running. I don't see that vertical ability from the outside. So you want to put him in the slot, but you don't really get much yards after the catch. He doesn't break tackles. I think he has fewer broken tackles in his career than Malachi Corley had this past season. Which again, Corley had like 50 this past season, but Pearsall doesn't even have that many in his entire career as a wide receiver. So he's not a guy who's going to play through contact well. He doesn't create many yards after the catch. And his skill set's kind of redundant with Josh Downs at that point. Josh Downs, I think, has a little bit more vertical juice even than a Pearsall, even though I think Pearsall's fine from the slot. So for me, when it comes to the fit with the Colts, I don't love Pearsall in this offense alongside of Josh Downs. I just need a different skill set there. And I could talk myself into like an Xavier Legette because he's such a height, weight, speed freak, and you can convince me that eventually he can win down the field. I could talk myself into Troy Franklin, for instance, the vertical ability. I could talk myself into Malachi Corley because he creates after the catch, and the Colts didn't have much of that last year. But Pearsall, I see so much redundancy with Josh Downs that I just don't see the value there as a top 50 pick. If you're taking him round 3, I can be fine with it. If you're taking him round 4, I'm elated with it. I think he can be a really good backup receiver for this team. But when you're taking him top 50, you're going to start him. You're not taking a guy at 46 to sit on your bench. Your plan is to get him out there. And I don't think he can supplant Downs or Alec Pierce even in year 1. I just don't think that he's that kind of guy. I don't think he can play on the outside right away. So yeah, I like Ricky Pearsall. I do. He was number 2 Build-A-Ballard wide receiver. He checks off number 3 Build-A-Ballard wide receiver. Checks off every single box the team looks for. Has the connection with Anthony Richardson. I love all of that on paper. And if you were getting that in round 3 or 4, I'm feeling good. But as a top 50 pick, which it's trending like he's going to be a top 50 pick come draft day, I would rather have a Franklin or Jalen Polk or, like all these other guys, like a Ladd McConkey, Roman Wilson. Like, I just see a little bit more, maybe not Roman Wilson. He's more of a slot guy too, but I digress. I see more in these other guys being able to play on the outside and fitting better in the offense, where Pearsall, I'm seeing so much redundancy there. So I like the player. Awesome dude too. When you got to talk to him at the combine, really cool dude. I think he was wearing like a bandana or something like that too. And he was looking really cool, looking really fresh there too. So I'm all about him succeeding in the NFL. It's just, I don't love the fit as a top 50 pick in Indy. I really don't like it. And I wanted to. I just watched so much film. And I was like, I just don't see it. I don't see the fit in Indy in year 1.
Yeah, and I'll say this as a Ricky Pearsall guy because I like him a lot. But this is one of those things where I like the player, but I have to talk myself into how he fits with the team I cover. And, down at the Senior Bowl, me and Jay Robbins and Noah Compton talked about this a lot. Like, we loved what we saw from Pearsall and love what you could project him in the league. I'm a route runner guy. If I see a route runner, I fall in love, and he's one of the best in this draft. He's got the great hands. He can make circus catches. I think he provides you some return ability as well. They even, Florida tried to mess with him a little bit as a gadgety type player as well. Did some creative things with him. And so if you kind of look at him as like a light version of what Paris Campbell was supposed to be with the Colts, but still, for the exact reason you said, it just doesn't fit because of Josh Downs, essentially. And even if you look at it as you're looking for a replacement for Alec Pierce in 2025 or something, it still doesn't work, I don't think, but I really do like him a lot. But I'm with you. My heart would be happy with it, but my head would be like, man, what role is he going to have? Right? He'd be a return specialist with the Isaiah McKenzie role. He would be Isaiah McKenzie, essentially, in his rookie year. And drafting him that high, you're banking on more. So I'm with you. It's one of those things, a battle of head and heart for me, because I am a Ricky Pearsall guy. I am a route runner guy. But the puzzle pieces don't really fit in round 2 there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Again, I like Ricky Pearsall. I think he's going to be a good pro, like a juiced up Hunter Renfrow. I think that's awesome. I just don't see the fit here in Indy's offense.
This feels a lot like the Sky Moore ascension a couple years ago. Like, especially this time, he's kind of big on Twitter. And then within a few weeks of the draft, he keeps, going up. So it feels a lot like that. And I'm not going to say he's going to be Sky Moore because it just hasn't worked out with Sky Moore. I think Pearsall will be good in certain places. I just don't really see the fit with the Colts, but yeah. So we are moving on to round 3 here in a minute. So am I going to kill Zach's latest mock draft again with my next pick? We'll see. I've been told I'm a competitive person, Zach. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I would say that for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you've been a passenger in my car dozens of times now. I am not nice to people who I deem to be poor drivers, and I play to win. That's why you can often hear my daughter from the back seat asking, "Daddy, who are you talking to?" And I have to tell her, "I'm talking to the bad drivers, baby, not you. Don't worry about it." So yeah, I have a competitive side. That's fine. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my pals. I could charge them rent on my iconic properties just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also rob their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is, and that is me, baby. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with your friends if you don't feel like being a complete villain at the moment, and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Also, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing. The uniforms are looking great. No one has anything to say about them. And FanDuel is your place to bet on every game featuring those beautiful MLB uniforms. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So, Zach, big sports stuff going on in Indy right now. Pacers in the playoffs, but it's Monday night. Our girl, Caitlin Clark, come on home, girlfriend. But you know what? I went to FanDuel. I checked their WNBA bets. They don't even have odds for the number 1 pick. Foregone conclusion. It starts at the number 2 pick, which I love to see that. So what are you guys all waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's number 1 sports book. Okie doke, round 3. So now we're going to start to get a little weird. Maybe let's go in the direction of some Senior Bowl guys. We know the Colts love that, whether it's round 1 or 7. So Zach, go ahead and kick us off here. How are we going to round out your draft?
Yeah. So again, we're going to round it out with another player that we've talked highly about on this show. We very much like this player, but it's another thing like a Pearsall where it's like, look, I can talk myself into round 4, round 5, round 6 for this guy. Round 3, though, again, a top 100 pick for this player. I can't see it because I don't think he's going to have much of a role from day one. And that is edge rusher Jalix Hunt from Houston Christian. Look, I know the Colts want to get an edge rusher in this class, likely in the top 100. But I think if you're going to go this route in round 3, you go with more of a proven guy, more of a proven entity. And when you watch a guy like Jalix Hunt, a guy who was I think he was a safety a couple years ago, transferred to Houston Christian. They moved down to off-ball linebacker / edge rusher. It's just a very, very raw player. Very, very raw player. I could see a scenario where the Colts take him here, though, because he checks every single box for the Colts, has that positional change thing that Chris Ballard loves, has the production in college, has the Senior Bowl, has the athletic ability with 34-inch arms. Like, this is a Build-A-Ballard type of guy. But it's just like, this is way too early. And if you guys think I'm crazy, I have seen a lot of mocks where he has been going in like the late third rounds, in the early fourth rounds. So I'm not picking like a late day 3 guy in here and throwing him here at round 3. There have been plenty of mocks where he's going this high and people have been taking him this high. But Jalen Hunt, I think, is a good player. And I would love, if we had like 6 top 100 picks, I would take him with one of the top 100 picks there and be happy with the project player I have. But when you only have 3 picks in the top 100 and you have a lot of other needs, like I've neglected cornerback in this mock here,
you hate it.
I hate it. I guess I hate it. But yeah, Jalen Hunt here like this high would probably kill me. It's a Build-A-Ballard guy, a Senior Bowl guy, a guy who changed positions, a guy who was a great interview at the combine. Like, he checks everything that the Colts look for, and I'm terrified they'll reach for him. But again, it's a player. I don't hate the player. It's just I can't take him this high. It's way too much for a guy who reminds me a lot of like an Isaiah Land. And I'm like, I don't want Isaiah Land playing many snaps, and I don't want Jalen Hunt playing many snaps. So it's like, why would you be taking this guy in the top 100?
No, you're right. Whether it is mock draft simulators or people's actual mocks, I've seen him up in the 3rd round now, and it's rich for me. I mean, I saw someone nationally describe him as a Senior Bowl standout the other day, and I was like, yeah, was he? Because when I was studying the Senior Bowl going down to Mobile, I saw Jalen Hunt and I said, my God, this is Chris Ballard's guy. So I tried to keep an eye on him throughout the week, and I did not really notice anything throughout the week. So that's not to say he didn't have nice reps. I wasn't watching everything they did, but I haven't been hearing big buzz about it. But he does, like you mentioned, he checks so many of their boxes athletically, size-wise. Seems, again, to have a good head on his shoulders. But before we get out of here, I'm going to throw mine in there. Another Senior Bowl guy, another uber athlete. This year's newest tight end Raz King, Theo Johnson from Penn State. Now this, I really don't hate Theo Johnson, the player. There's so many other tight ends at this point that I'm starting to turn more onto. Like, obviously Bowers is the pipe dream if it happens. I'm really big on Jatavian Sanders. I like him a lot. The more you've been talking about Ben Sinnott, the more I've been watching and liking him as well. I like his versatility. But Theo Johnson, I think he's going to get overdrafted because of the athleticism. And when you watch him, it just doesn't always come together. You don't feel like you're watching this dude with the perfect 10 Raz, basically. And I don't think there's anything he does like exceptionally well. Like, he's not a plus blocker. He can make some tough catches, but like you would think you're looking at Jimmy Graham with like his athletic profile. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't see a lot of that. And he's just so inconsistent. Yeah. He was the standout tight end at the Senior Bowl because there had to be, but I was very underwhelmed with the tight ends in general down there. I know Sinnott was one of them, and I've said I don't think he had a very strong week. But now that I've been watching him more, watching his tape, you see more what he's capable of. But yeah, I'm not into it. But I think, again, because Johnson tested so well and people are projecting what he could be, that I think he's probably going to get overdrafted, and 3rd round is realistic.
Yeah, and I'll say this real quick. Sinnott is at least 21 years old, and he was a fullback until this past year. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of, a reason why he might not be as developed as other guys. Theo Johnson is fascinating to watch on film, because if you didn't tell me that he was this elite tester, like all these Penn State guys in the last couple of years, all these Penn State guys, if you didn't tell me he was some elite tester, no chance I'd believe you, or no chance that I would think that, watching film. Yep. I'm watching this guy, and look, I watch my little sister's soccer games every single weekend, and I see the way she runs with her arms out, pushing people around, and like it's like, because she's a bigger girl, so she's running and like elbowing people, and like it
got that dog in her.
Yeah, but it looks like it hurts to like turn sometimes because she's still like growing into her body. This is like Theo Johnson, man. It's like I'm seeing a guy where it's like, how did you test the way you did? I don't see the explosion. I don't see the ability to corner and maneuver like very well. Like he looks like you said, it's more like a Jimmy Graham type of movement. But even Jimmy Graham, when second that ball was up in the air, Jimmy Graham became this fluid basketball player.
Well, I said you would think you would be watching Jimmy Graham with his athletic profile, but you're not getting that.
But like Jimmy Graham, you know how Jimmy Graham didn't have like the long speed or anything. Like it was very much like it was running like my sister. It was like the elbows out, like not
Get up
really
and go.
separating,
Yeah.
but it was when the ball was up, he was going up and getting it. You know,
Mhm.
Theo Johnson, like it's like he's moving like that, like just chilling out there, but he's not going up and getting the ball either. Like you're not really getting much. So I'm with you. I watched this film and I was expecting to see like a Jelani Woods, or I think Zach Kuntz was the other guy who tested really well. Like Zach Kuntz, you could see it on film, like
Last year,
long
yeah.
jump champion, like he could run. I don't see it with Theo Johnson. And I know it's the Penn State cheating thing. I don't know how they do it. I don't know what they do to these guys before they go to the combine, but they make these guys superhuman for like a week. And then they come to the NFL and they just don't move like that. But I saw that with Theo Johnson. I just didn't see it on film. But you guys can let us know in the comments. Like, is Theo Johnson the greatest tight end ever? Should Jalix Hunt go higher than round 3? Did you guys unironically love one of these drafts that we did? Basically,
Yeah,
did you
that's
love
another
my
thing.
mock? Did you love my mock draft one that Jake hated on this one here? But before we get out of here today, though, guys, I do want to remind you that the Indy Draft Guide is here with $9.99. You guys can get an essential piece of reading for Colts fans both before and after draft, featuring 225 in-depth scouting reports, features, and much more. Click the link in our show notes today to see how high we are on Theo Johnson, Jalix Hunt, and all these other players that we took in the top 100 in today's mock draft. And before we get out of here, make sure, again, you guys are tuning into the Locked On mock draft here later this week. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Kicks2, all on Twitter. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.